Good Monday morning. Come on, puppies. And welcome to Ice Age TV. Come on, hey, Diesel and Rebel. Come on, let's go, puppies. And here it is. Yelling at the dogs has already begun. Come on, let's go. See the house. Come on, puppies. See over the house here. Wow, it's Monday morning, and it's an hour earlier than when I would usually start the conversation because we have sprung forward. And wow. But wow, beautiful Monday morning. Beautiful Monday morning. This is the first time I put on a t-shirt underneath another shirt. First time I'm not wearing my pullover Honda gear, which you've seen now for every day of my video for the most part. Incredible how much I wore out that Honda pullover, the pullovers. So it's going to be 60s today. So now the cold weather is pretty much gone for the most part. We'll have a little bit here and there, but not much. So here we go to the house. Wife hasn't left yet, and maybe she's like, wow. It's the morning's moving quicker than you realize, especially when you do this spring forward. Do you feel like you've sprung forward? Let me get in the house here, and I don't know who's in the house, and just to kind of turn off right here to get the morning going. All right, back out. No, hey, don't do that. Come on, pups. Come on, puppies. Get over the barn. Come on, pups. All right. Once again, what a beautiful Monday morning. What a change. It's just hard to believe. Drew and I were talking about this last night. It's hard to believe we really did have one of our colder, really long winters in a long time. I mean, it's just hard to believe. We really did have an extremely cold and wintry winter that we just usually don't get here. So we were talking about how the last time we rode our street bikes was in Florida. And so you're now talking basically December, January, February into March. You know, we're now close to 3.5 months since the last time we rode our motorcycles. And Julia claims last night that that was the first time she's ridden her KTM 150. It's hard to believe it's a 150. It thinks like a 250, but it's a 150 KTM two-stroke bike. It's hard to believe. The last time she rode that bike was right before Kiefer went to the hospital. So I'm definitely going to take the Works Edition out to get some of that thing running. Just their property, though. I just don't like ripping up the property because those tires destroy it. As we get the Monday morning, and not as radical as I thought it'd be, just having to get about an hour earlier because your body takes a little time to acclimate. But I wonder how many people, it's interesting how half the country wants to eliminate the daylight saving times, the other half doesn't, or something like that. I've read a statistic. It's like 40% versus like 60% favor leaving the spring forward, you know, don't do it, and others favor it. Hey, come on, pups. Come on there, Princey, and whatever, Gypsy, just trying to remember all these dogs' names. And I got to get my coffee in me, and blah, blah, blah. And here we are. So let's get the dogs fed. So we can do that first. All right. Good Lord, man. All right, get the dogs fed. Got them in now. Everybody just chill out. Go to your own bowls. Guys, just kind of break it up here. Wow, I destroyed my shoulder yesterday working. I mean, I destroyed it. And, man, I mean, you talking about just being in pain on my left side. Whole left side. But, you know, what it's from, what you don't understand here, I'm going to share with you how this really more is an issue of my work ethic. So you realize or not, years ago, when I had these public telephones here, if you look here, there's a cash box drawer. This is a cash box drawer. And back in the day, majority of your phone calls are coin money. And so you had to take this can out, and these cans would hold about $150 to $180 before you get jammed up. So you take these cans out and put it like in an area in your vehicle, then you had to put a new one in. And so I used to have like 400 payphones, and I serviced them with a few other guys. For the most part, I was the main guy, always out there working in the field for many, many years. But what people don't know is when you brought the money back, you had to then dispense that can. You had to take that can, you had to grab that can, and you had to turn it to empty the money. So you had to turn it to empty the money into what we had, a big coin counting machine. Because back in the day, you had quarters, nickels, and dimes. that would accumulate in that payphone to make a phone call. And so so what happened is over the years, I mean, you're talking me doing this probably from 1996 until probably about 2010, 2012. But then it went to us being into bigger cans and even more weight of then moving me than we, I mean, so what people don't know about me is my challenge is my left arm and left shoulder have always been used doing a repetitive motion. But then to add insult to injury, in 2017, I bought a brand new Road Glide CVO, and I was going up an incline at a gas station, and I made a huge mistake. And when I took off, I started going right, and I stalled the bike. And so as I stalled the bike started tipping over, and with all my might, I used my left side of my body holding on to the motorcycle as it's going down, and then my right arm holding the bike, trying to not let the bike just fall on the ground, which I should have just let it fall on the ground, because basically you're close to 1,000 pounds. You know, these bikes, with no gear in them, these motorcycles are 900 pounds for the most part. Fuel, so I had gear in mine working out of them. So I destroyed my left arm and shoulder. I could barely even ride back home. I was barely, after a really nice guy came up and helped me pick it back up. But I rode home, my left side of my body, I could barely clutch the bike and really hold on to get the bike back home. And I was about 30 miles from home down in Dumfries, Virginia, where that happened. And so that is now it's not 8 years ago. It was like October or September of 2017. It's 2025. But that injury has never really ever healed itself. I mean, it's beyond believable. I mean, I probably should have like shoulder surgery, and then my right arm, my bicep, I tore my bicep when I did that. My bicep looks like, it's a funky looking bicep if I do a bicep. We're going to put my coffee right here. So, whole point of that is yesterday I re-injured this shoulder, and man, I mean, it just destroyed my whole day of really being able to do much of anything. Plus, it was just freezing tail. But I saw, even for myself, I was pretty much amazed that I was able to get out and get motivated to jump on the Honda Acura Twin and ride around. But, amazingly enough, riding around that bike, it kind of, the pain kind of went away somewhat. And so it kind of all worked out. If you watched my video yesterday, it was a really nice video where Julie and I were blasting around the property. And it was just a lot of fun to get that Acura Twin out because I've barely even ridden the thing. But for me, man, am I still in pain? Yeah, it's a lot of pain. What you do to yourself. There's so many stories of people being on motorcycles, cars, jobs. You injure yourself, and it's a life injury that'll never really ever heal itself. Who doesn't know these stories about that? Good old boy, good old Diesel back there is hanging out, just being a good boy without fighting among these guys as they eat the food. And they're kind of unique. Except they eat here and there. That's what I've kind of figured out. They just kind of take a time out, and then a little while later they come back and they start eating again. So wow. So here we are. What's interesting is I talked about yesterday in my video. When you look at my analytics, it's about an average of 5 to 6 minute viewing time on these videos that I make on a consistent basis, and even other videos I make, and I get all that. And I talked about yesterday with good old Bob out of Melbourne. He claims that he watches my videos all the way through. I wonder how many people on my channel that are regulars actually watch the whole video. I mean, I'd be impressed if, many, I think it's a very small percentage of people actually watch the whole video, because I get it. I'm just talking, and, it's not like I'm the world news and have all this critical information that, whatever. So it's interesting to hear Bob reach out, because he heard me talk about that yesterday. The challenge in a YouTube creator is bringing content to entice people to watch your channel. And the only way you make money in this social media, besides finding a sponsor for you to sell something for them, is through your viewership, time of people watching your videos and how many people watch them and how long they watch them. That's the whole key to be able to grow your channel. How many subscribers, how much viewership, a lot of variables there to make any money on this YouTube thing, which I've talked about many times. You just don't make a lot of money. So, you know, you just have mixed feelings. Me being a creator, somebody's like, it's just such a waste of time. It's just, I think myself, it so much reminds me of being in network marketing when I worked in the oil industry and I was starting to become very successful in the oil industry for what it was and for what I was doing. Nothing making millions, just making a good six-figure income. I was en route to making that at a very young age. But then I got cut short because my good friend got so caught up in the demise of the oil industry, for the industry I was in, of underground fuel storage. My good friend that was making, you know, $150,000 a year back in the 80s, he was on the page of moving on because he saw the paint in the wall that the oil industry's, all these people owning their own underground fuel tanks was going to start to disappear, and it was going to, you know, really take away our jobber market of having so many business opportunities of selling fuel to people who have their own fuel storage, which that started to change as the EPA. So my good friend, his name's Dave Butts. It's not the Washington Redskins, even though he used that name to his advantage, making phone calls back in the 80s, and many people would answer did he go to like, Dave Butts? Dave Butts, the Washington Redskin football player? And he's like, no, that's not me, but yeah, it's the same name, blah, blah, blah. If you remember the Redskin line of football players, I was one of the football linemen or defensive or front man guy, Dave Butts. And so anyways, he was really starting to see his income kind of have an adjustment because so many people were getting rid of their underground fuel storage and then being, you know, basically forced to go to the gas station to fuel up their fleet of trucks and cars. And so he got it really heck bent on network marketing, the Amway style of doing things. And so if you really were ever a person back then into Amway, you know, Mary Kay, there were tons of different companies out there trying to get people to sign up and present their product from person to person sales, and then signing up a group of people where you networked off each other. And there's some, they so-called, you know, made a good fair amount of money, but for the most, they never made any money. And that's kind of how I look at the YouTube, the social media thing. It's in some ways, it's the same thing. And so many people used to call it the Ponzi scheme because your goal was to sign up as many people under you to be now buying products from you, but also signing up their friends and neighbors and family to be buying stuff from them. And it just then all trickled back up to the top guy that had the most subscribers, I'm trying to think of the right word, the most networkers that they had signed up and their friends had signed up. But for the most part, the bottom people never made any money because they just didn't have the big base like the top guy did. And I've always thought to myself on the YouTube, the social media, it's in some ways, it's the exact same thing because there's only a select few that ever really get the huge number of subscribers that will ever really make any money out of this type of, really, it's a business. Whether you want to accept it or not, you're in a business. With the amount of time you're putting into this, like I do, for you should be rewarded for your efforts, for all the time and efforts that you put into this. And for all the time and efforts I put into this, you've heard me many times bitch on how there's just no money here. And so the point I'm trying to resonate back to you is it sort of reminds me of being network marketing, and I put my hand into a few different companies, but I really got hell-bent on getting involved with the waterless car wash industry because it was the green agenda. It was the be safe to Mother Nature, not using water to clean cars and trucks and boats. And so I got hell-bent on that, but not so much me wanting to quit my job, but for the company I work for, the owner more or less pushed me out, telling me I couldn't do something on the side. He's basically telling me if I want to do a second type of thing in my life, I couldn't do it. So I had to make a choice. So my position was, well, I'm a commissioned salesperson that works for your company that you own, and whatever I do, you get half the monies I create by making sales. So you're not paying me, I'm paying you. I'm just using your name and your trucks and your capabilities to sell fuel. So why do you think I'm taking that away from you when I was growing? I was in one of my best years of growing in the sales and making more money. but it turned into a very confrontational ownership. The owner and other people who worked there that thought I was abusing my time in the day, spending more time trying to sell a car care product than trying to make sales for the company to sell fuel, which was a total lie. And so I just eventually, like, you know what? I've been here 8 years. I'm moving on. So I left a very good income from making basically 65 grand a year, and I was really heading towards an 80 to 100 grand a year income. And so overnight, poof, to making basically no money. From now, struggling like never ever seen, just to make $2,000 or $3,000 a month, all on my own, of having to pay for fuel and my truck payment and all the materials and the business cards and brochures, and then going to meetings and signing people up. So I killed myself. I worked 7 days a week. I was approaching anybody, everywhere, anything, walking in and out of businesses. I've talked about this story so many times. So for basically a little over a year, I would say about a year and a half, I just totally committed myself to just selling this product and trying to build a network of people. And over time, I did have about 700 distributors. So I had a pretty good amount of distributors for my efforts of the few years that I actually put into doing that. But the problem was, most people don't do anything. They would sign up, and because you could sign up for $39.95 and be a distributor, and you didn't necessarily have to buy product, but you should buy some product. But most people weren't in position to buy a lot of products. They just buy a few bottles, and then they would go show their friends and neighbors, and then maybe a few more bottles. And for the most part, it was just, minuscule what really was going to play out, and what I thought would maybe make me a millionaire very young, being that I could now duplicate my capabilities through hundreds of other people. But it was the same old story. You can see reports of activity of 700 plus distributors, and it was just like a 1%, 2% factor. Like 7 to 14 people would actually be an actual person go out on a regular basis and promote the product and want to help grow the network marketing group that I created. And so it's just, you saw very quickly, a majority of people just don't have the time, they don't have the desire, and they're not going to do what I was doing. So the point of this conversation is, I kind of started to realize in my life, it was like, I am killing myself just to make maybe $3,000 a month gross a month. And once again, if you're living in a truck every day, which I was, and you're driving around buying fuel, and you're out showing product, you have to spend money to present product, and then you're out handing brochures, business cards, you're having to pay for hotel rooms to do seminars, and the list goes on and on and on. At the end of the month, I probably had a cell phone. I was using my cell phone to call people, and blah, 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 da-da-da-da, dee-dee-dee-dee. You were lucky to make $2,000 net. And that's not even if you tax yourself. So if you added taxes on that, you're not making any money. And eventually I just had the point, it's like, you know what? This is ridiculous. I am killing myself for this company called Envirotech International, for a guy named Rod Yank and Jonathan Goldsmith, a.k.a. the Dos Equis most interesting man in the world, which he was one of my personal sponsors through Dave Butts. He sponsored Dave Butts, but then Dave Butts sponsored me. So he was the second up from where I was sponsored from. So I knew all these. I knew the higher up. And so eventually I just like, this just makes no sense. There's no way you can convince me working my ass off 7 days a week, putting in horrendous hours, traveling up and down the Eastern Seaboard, going to hotels, trying to train people to do what I do. It's like, it just doesn't work. So eventually I told my good friend Dave, I'm done. I'm done. It's like, this is a waste of time. You lost your house. This is no lie. He lost his house. I just about lost this property. He was on the page, I should just get rid of all this stuff and don't worry about it and just move on and, take the money and make out of the house that carries me that much longer to chase the dream of being one of the top network marketing guys in this company to sell car care products, which then went to personal care products, blah, 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 blah. As the company diversified and made more crap for you to buy and walk around and try to tell somebody, what to buy and use. And it is a funny story because we did get into the car care product. We did get into the personal care product. And I think I've told the story before, but for those that maybe be newer to my channel, it is classic. So my first marriage went sour from this whole network marketing experience. My first wife met me working in the oil industry, and then she witnessed me quitting my job in the oil industry, which she was taken back like you can't believe, very nervous about that. And then she was with me during the hardships of what I went through back in 1993, 92. This is back in 92. I bought this house in 1991. So you think about this. Bought this house in September 91. By June of 92, I'm now on my own trying to afford a $2,100 a month mortgage on this place for this property with my wife. Not including insurance, not including maintaining it. So overnight, I truly put my whole, my home and everything else on the line, because my wife, she pulled in money, but not enough money to pay the mortgage by herself. And so now this really created a lot of stress and hardships in our marriage, and lots of other things played out as time went on. So from 92 to 93, I was on my own trying to make a living, but then I actually pulled back and decided I would get into the telephone business. And I knew of a person that owned a public telephone company. I decided to go work for them because that person approached me back when working in the oil industry to come work for them in that industry. And so then I pulled back and I went to work for this gentleman. I think his name, Chuck Carlson was his name, Payphone of America out of Alexandria, Virginia. And so I worked for him for 3 years to learn the industry, but I saw the paint on the wall of this older guy who would have to sell it. So, but I became successful in that industry, and I learned the ins and outs of that industry, and then I knew he was going to have to sell out because of financial dire straits of a litigation against him from a former employee that helped him build the business. It was a fiasco, but anyways, I moved on, and I started my own public telephone company, and I became very, very successful very quickly. I mean, within just a few years' time, I had $1 million a year company, and I was making really good money. And so once again, the reason I'm talking about this conversation, let me go back to the conversation though before I get too much further than that, is when I was going through a relationship with my first wife, and eventually separated, and eventually divorced. In the meantime, when I met my second wife, it's classic because back in the 1994, 95, this company called Envirotech International that had this car care product, they diversified into the metal polish, a really good metal polish cleaner. They diversified into the the oil additive for the engine. But then they got into the healthcare side, where they had a product called Body Proof, and this bottle of Body Proof was basically an all-in-one product that most people use today that cleans your whole body, your hair, and it's a one product, 2-3 step capabilities of cleaning your hair and your body and whatever else. And so this was a really good product. I really enjoyed it. I'll never forget, I met my wife, my existing wife now, on a date, and we agreed to meet like a Ruby Tuesdays to be in a public place so that she would feel good. Back in the day, it was a different way of getting to know each other, being that we went through the Washington Post personals. My daughter gets the biggest kick out of this. Today people do online dating and everything else. Back then you didn't have that capability. So I literally met my wife through the Washington Post personals. And then I get to talk to her over the phone, and it was probably a few weeks before she felt confident to meet somebody she never knew of. And so we met at Ruby Tuesdays to be in a public place and had a good time and had just a very casual lunch. And it's so interesting how we never really per se made another date. But what I did, which this is kind of, to me, I thought to myself, here's a way I can have a chance to call my date back another day, is I gave her a bottle of Body Proof. Basically a body. You step back and think as a man, you're giving a woman a personal care product, and what's the underlying message? Is the woman like, do I smell or something? I mean, it's classic that I gave her on our first date that bottle, and I really was because I really wanted to call her, to have a reason to call her and say, hey, how would you think of that product or whatever? Can you even believe it? I mean, oh my gosh, what a goofball, right? I mean, even for me to think I did that back then, good Lord. How desperate was I for a sale, right? So, but I was then already established back working in the telephone business that was 1995. So that was the fall of 95, and I've been now in the telephone business for 2 years. And my wife never knowing shortly thereafter we met, and eventually we got married, that 2 weeks after we got married, I would be quitting my job at the telephone company and start my own business. My wife was like, had I known all this was going to play out, I wouldn't even have married your ass. All right, so the point of that conversation really is going back to the YouTube community is, it's like, wow, for all the effort I put into this YouTube social media, for the minuscule, just no money being returned, it's just I sometimes think to myself, what else could I do? And that's where I've been for many years. I've been in my own industry for so long. It's a burnout factor. I've done it and done it and done it and done it. But it's like as I get older in life, it's like, I want to do something else besides this totally manual labor. And so I really thought my social media would really evolve into a decent gig where I'd make 3, 4, 5 grand a month. I mean, I never had this idea that I'd make millions off of YouTube. I never thought that. Did I always think I could make 3 to 5 grand a month? I really did. I really felt that my channel would generate enough, enough interest of people watching my content and who I am and how crazy I am, and the antics that I bring with it. I really always thought that it would always bring 3 to 5 grand, but it doesn't. And you've heard this conversation a zillion times. It isn't here to complain. It's more about, I think, wow, had I put my time and energy into something else for the last 5 years, and I found the right niche of something else, I probably would have made money by, hand over fist, especially if I would have really gotten in the stock market. If I had gotten back in the stock market back in 2020, 2021, 2022, when the market was basically half of what it is today, oh my gosh, if I would have played the right stocks, right numbers, I would have made millions. I mean, so anyways, not here to have the gripe of the conversation in the morning. And that's pretty much it. I don't really want to make these conversations that long. But for one thing for sure, I talked about the Doge really for the last month for the most part. And it is incredible to witness what we're witnessing. I'm not going to get into that really much today because it's just too much yippity-dippity to do. And I got to go because the morning's passing us. And I just don't feel like I'm going to make it a day where I can talk about the government and all the policies and politics. Is just piss the hell out of you. So I'm leaving it at that, but the beautiful weather's here. And you get the Mustang up to mac and cheese and get the exhaust fixed on this, which ought to be a nice little project for me. But now the good news is the warmer weather definitely gives you the bike bug, which that's what I'm going to do. I get the bike bug. So we'll hopefully get on the bikes, do some riding time. That's not going to happen today, but I'm just saying now the season's here, the change of season's here, thank God. And so we'll be able to have some fun on the motorcycles, hopefully sooner than later. But that's it, everybody. Keep it a little I think everybody likes the shorter videos. I like it because I don't have to talk as much. So that's it. Hope everybody has a really nice, blessed day. And stay tuned for more adventures on Ice HTV.